Dr. Kathy Humphrey.
Thank you. And good evening. Good evening. I had to make sure you're still out there. First, allow me to join in your tradition by saying Mazel Tov, and thank you for 30 years of supporting Chabad House on campus. While I was not there at the beginning, I have been around a few years now, and I must say how grateful we in the administration are for what you do to support our students. I have watched you nurture them, support them, remind them of who they are and what they are called to be. We cannot thank you enough, for truly it takes an entire village to raise a young person, and you are very much a part of our village. I am amazed by the work that is completed and the relentless commitment that is made by the Weinsteins and their children to provide a home away from home to so many young people who need their support. It is evident that this is truly their calling. It is evident that they love their work, for they do it with a cheerful heart. Because the Weinsteins have included us, because they have taught us and helped us to have a deeper understanding and a profound respect for your customs and your faith, Lyle and I can't thank you enough for what you do, for we love and cherish you as you have loved and cherished our students. I would also like to extend a mazel tov to both Rabbi Leon Morris, who we met while we were in Israel with his wonderful wife. We were all a bit jet lagged when we met you, so we hope you get a better impression of all of us tonight. And I'd also like to congratulate Tony for the work that she has continued to do with Chabad. Now, David, I heard on yesterday that you invited us to stay in your home the next time we come to Israel. I hope you weren't just talking, because we're coming back. Which brings me to the topic at hand, our journey to Israel and back. Let me first begin by saying it was an amazing experience. Our journey to Israel and back activated all of our senses, and the wisdom that we gained provided us a deeper understanding of the culture, the country, and its people, and thereby a keener understanding of many of our students and many of our community members. Time will not permit me to tell you about everything that happened on our trip, so I will tell you about some of the experiences that influenced and even at times altered my thinking. As a child, I was taught a song that I later learned was actually written in 1841 by Claire H. Scott, entitled "Open My Eyes." Don't worry, Shmuel, I know I'm not supposed to sing. As I began to reflect on the totality of my experience, the lyrics of this song rushed over me as it depicted my experience so eloquently as I traveled in Israel. The songwriter wrote, "Open my eyes that I may see. glimpses of truth thou hast for me. Place in my hand the wonderful key that shall unclasp and set me free. Silently now I wait for thee, ready, my God, thy will to see. Open my eyes, illumine me, Spirit divine. Open my ears that I may hear voices of truth thou sendest clear. And while the wave notes fall on my ears, everything false will disappear. Everything false will disappear. Once arriving to the land that was described by Joshua and Caleb as exceedingly good, I began to see glimpses of truth. For what fell on my ears made everything false disappear. Before arriving, I thought I had a pretty good picture of what I would see and hear. Once arriving in Israel, I quickly learned that what I had been told about this land was not always true. You see, from the moment we agreed to go, I was excited to have the opportunity to go to a land that has so much meaning for me personally and professionally. To go to a land that I had read about, listened to messages about, listened to stories, and tried to envision certain whereabouts that define the core values of so many different people. I was excited to go to a land that is discussed frequently, but called home by so many. Yet, some tried to wash away my excitement because of their understanding about the land, their understanding about the people, their understanding about the realities that exist in the land. My own brother sent me a text message before I got on the plane, and it read, "Kathy, please be cautiously aware of your surroundings while you are in Israel. The family would be lost without you, especially the young ones, and yes, the older ones too. Love you." Now, I'm the 10th of 11 children. I don't think they'd miss me that much. But it was nice that he thought of it. When I told some that we were going to Israel, they would say, "Are you sure you want to go right now?" I talked to Kenyon and I said, "Are we sure we want to go right now?" And we agreed that we did want to go. And I'm so glad that I did not allow those with those fears to cancel my participation in a journey to a place that I indeed plan to return. Because my eyes and my ears have been open, and I know a different reality today, for everything false has disappeared. Albert Einstein said, "The mind that opens to a new idea never returns to its original size." While the newspaper and other media outlets had informed me about the controversies that existed in Israel, I quickly came to the realization that my understanding was superficial at best. Yes, my mind was expanded. Honestly, prior to going, I could not understand why so many Americans would choose to move their residence to Israel. Once there, it was hard to understand why many more do not choose. For life there seemed so much easier, especially for those who were observant. And again, my mind was expanded. It was amazing to know that every week, all of Jerusalem observes the Sabbath. And the rustling and the bustling in the streets ceased at sundown. The streets that were so noisy during the day became so quiet at that point in time. We celebrated Chabad at the home of a family that provided Shavuos meals every week to the community. And while they prepared to receive their guests downstairs, we celebrated Shavuos on the rooftop of their home. Now, this was an amazing experience. Allow me to set the scene for you. The Muslims were celebrating Ramadan, and the fasting period now was over. So you could hear the chanting of their prayers all over the city. And because of how we were situated, we could see all the way to the west wall. And there we saw people praying. And because we had been there, I knew what it sounded like to be at the wall. To hear people praying in different languages, in different formats, but all praying. I stood beside a woman who I could not understand what she was saying. But there's one thing I know about that woman. She was serious about her prayers, and I am sure God heard her, because I did. Jews and Muslims simultaneously, peacefully, reverently praying to their God. We never hear about that in the media. And so, yes, again, my mind was expanded because my eyes and ears were filled with a new truth. As a mother, it was difficult for me to grapple with the fact that all young people are required to serve in the military. But once I saw the maturity of the young officers, and I thought about the pride that it seemed to instill in these young people about their country. Once I reflected on the expectation to live a life that is about more than self. And once I understood how their military experience provided them the foundation for their lives, my ethnocentric thoughts faded. And again, my mind was expanded. Daily, our feet touched historical sites, from standing on the top of Masada to floating in the Dead Sea covered in that good mud. Lyle didn't get mud on him. I just have to call him out on that. Standing in the locations where the Mount Olive could be easily viewed, and all the while remembering Bible stories I had been told as a child. At the Joppa Gate, I thought about Jonah being swallowed by a big fish. I reflected further on that while we stood at the Joppa Gate, of how often we are always trying to go someplace we shouldn't be, trying to fulfill a purpose that we shouldn't feel. As you can imagine, walking the Via della Rosa had a significant meaning for me as a Christian. And just to stand in the city of Ephrat, knowing that a mighty woman named Rachel was buried there, made the trip more concrete and more real. I was intrigued by every place that we went, but the Holocaust Museum moved me in a different way, and at times rendered me speechless, for I was more horrified than I would have ever imagined. You see, it is one thing to know about the Holocaust. It is another thing to be in the very presence of the tragedy. For the museum is done so well that it makes one actually feel the physical presence of the existence of the atrocity. I am sure that many of you have seen it, but if you have not, it is a place where I believe all should go, because it is a reminder of Peter Niemöller's words when he wrote, "They first came for the socialists, and I did not speak out because I was not a socialist. Then they came for the trade unionist, and I did not speak out because I was not a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I did not speak out because I was not a Jew. Then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak." The museum is a reminder that we must speak up for injustice, even when it appears not to affect us. For you and I never know when it will be our turn to sit in the seat of the one who is being treated unjustly. The last two senses, taste and smell. Now, because I am not known for wearing sensible shoes, Freddie and Sarah warned me several times before going to pack comfortable shoes. And I am so happy that I heeded their advice. For we walked many, many, many miles a day. I have to tell you that my husband, a few weeks before our trip, ended up in the hospital. And the first question I asked the doctor was, "Is he going to Israel?" Not is he okay, is he going to Israel? And the doctor came out and said, "That is the first question that he asked me." And I want you to know that Lyle traveled and walked every step with us in a boot. He clopped along. So thank you, Lyle. We walked many, many miles a day, but the aroma and the taste of the food made all of the walking worth it. For when we returned home, we had not gained a pound. Sarah always says that, all calories are free at Chabad. It really is. I just didn't know you had to walk so much. But we had gained an experience for a lifetime and connections that we will never lose. We visited the Weizmann Institute, a place where some of the most renowned research is completed in the world. When I returned to Pittsburgh, I was asked if I would host a reunion of researchers in Pittsburgh who had worked in the Weizmann Institute. And I did, and it was a lovely occasion. And some of them who know that I am an administrator, they said, "Why were you working at the Weizmann Institute?" I said I wasn't, but I was there. We also visited a place called Hatzlah, which is an agency that saves thousands of lives in Israel. for they train legions of volunteers to be first responders. And oftentimes they arrive at the scene of an emergency in 3 minutes or less, which is substantially quicker than any ambulance could ever arrive on the scene. When returning, I shared that information with our Dean of Rehabilitation Science. And because he was so excited about this possible opportunities, I was able to make a connection with the Hazlet representative for our region. And soon, I hope to pull together a group of folks to discuss how we can bring that program to Pittsburgh. We ended the trip with an event where Pitt, and yes, CMU, and Chabad hosted an alumni event for our wonderful, wonderful alumni who live in Israel. Our alum came from everywhere. It was an impressive sight. One alum had just come from Gaza. The day before, bombs were hurled at Gaza, but he was there as if nothing had ever happened because it is a way of life for them. And I found out about bomb catchers. And I thought, I sure hope we have those here. It was an absolute wonderful experience to spend time with our alumni and to see old friends and to meet new ones. A few months ago, Yosef, Frady, Kenyon and Savannah, Shmuel and Sarah, and I all got together for a reunion dinner. And it was the first time that Lyle and I cooked a kosher meal. Now, some of you are saying, how did you cook a kosher meal? Well, we went to Sarah's house, just so you know. Now, I must tell you, it was quite an experience. Frady rescued me at the kosher grocery store because, of course, I thought it's a kosher grocery store, everything's got to be good in here. But no, it was not. So we took things out of my basket and got other things to put in my basket. Thank God for Frady. During the meal, it was clear to see that while the trip expanded our minds and engaged all of our senses, it also helped to develop wonderful, wonderful relationships. The last stanza of Claire Hart's song says, "Open my mouth and let me hear gladly warm truth everywhere. Open my heart and let me prepare love with thy children, thus to share." For those of you who have supported the trip, thank you for sharing with us. Thank you from the bottom of our hearts. And know that we will gladly bear the warmth and tell the truth everywhere. Thank you.